You're tuning into the podcast series We Talk Cyber with Monica, your platform for engaging discussions and expert opinions on all things cyber. For more information, check out monicatalkcyber.com and let's hop right into today's episode. Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from today. Welcome to today's episode of We Talk Cyber with Monica Verma. This is your host, Monica. Welcome to today's episode. Today we have a wonderful guest with us, someone that is an inspiration to me, but also one of the very first people from the cybersecurity community that I got acquainted to when I moved to Norway. One that has been working on this working in our industry for more than decades and has been a true inspiration in this industry. So we'll switch directly to our guest and we'll be hearing from him.
Yeah, nice to meet you all. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Bjørn Vatne. I'm currently the Chief Security Officer with Storebrand, which is a insurance company and financial services company here in Norway. And like Monica said, I'm also very engaged with the cybersecurity community in Norway, and I've been on the boards for many years of Norsk Informasjonssikkerhetsforum and the ISACA Norway chapter, and also involved with Cloud Security Alliance and yes, whatever cyber. So thank you for having me. Yeah.
You're welcome. It's so wonderful to have you. And as you said, whatever cyber, and that's the beauty of this podcast, because we're talking about all things cyber, and would not be the same without having you on as a guest on the podcast. So I'm really, really glad that you could take time to join us today. So we'll be talking today a bit about cyber threat landscape and evolution of cyber threat landscape that has happened over the last decade, let's say. How do you believe, because you've worked in this industry quite a long time now, you've worked over decades, how do you see, has the cyber threat landscape actually evolved in the last decade? Let's just take it from there.
Well, I would say that it's evolving with society as a whole. Because the digitalization of society sort of creates the threat landscape. If we look back, we don't have to go too far back either. It's maybe 20 years. We started to see the first online web shops. Usually you could shop for computer parts because it was mostly computer people that were using the internet. And at the time, there was not so much value floating digitally, and petty theft, the crime rate was low. We were using it mainly to swap a little bit of products and services. So the criminals, they were still preferring other arenas. But as we make ourselves increasingly more dependent on the internet and on the cyber universe, the threat landscape evolves with it, because it is a clear fact that in every sort of arena where there are values, there will also be criminal elements present trying to gain access to those values in unlawful and criminal ways. And as we now put more and more dependencies, more and more value into the digital arenas, the threat vectors come as well. So it's definitely a different picture, and it's not only the monetary values. We also put a lot of government sort of governing of society through the digital channels. We see criminal elements or nation states try to affect elections. You have a dialogue with your physician, with your medical doctor digitally. So there is a lot of stuff that we use now that might be interesting for other people to use in a bad way.
Right.
Absolutely, the threat landscape evolves with the digitalization and the increased dependency on the cyber universe.
And you brought up a very good example here, which is the attack of modifying the elections, using the attack for that purposes. And also recently with the pandemic, also attacking the health sector and so on. Have you also seen how the attack vectors or the TTPs that these attackers use, has that also evolved over time? Is it been a lot of tremendous change, or are they still using both the previous ones and new ones at the same time?
Yeah, I would say it is a mix, but they will always follow the crowd. The way that most people interact, this is where they will sort of adjust and tune in, and But I think that it depends also on the threat actor, what kind of TTPs you will see, because if you're a nation state, for example, increasingly more of country or state governance is going digital. And then you have a lot of time. So you will usually see a very stealthy, very sort of thorough, slow mapping of attack surface.
Very sophisticated, taking time without getting discovered right away, being stealthy in that manner, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, but then again, you can have like cartels working together. They will spam out emails, trying to infect as many people as possible, do the phishing campaigns. Mm-hmm. Again, they will, since people are depending so much on the digital media for news and for information, both from news agencies, but also from the government. Whenever there is something new, for example, with the current pandemic, we see that the attackers will jump on that bandwagon immediately. So around Christmas, there will be a lot of phishing attempts or fraud attempts around you have received a package. In the springtime, it will be about your tax returns. And now with the pandemic, it will be about we have a cure, or here you can go to test yourself, or they will jump on whatever is relevant. But I would say it's the TTPs. I mean, if you go back again, 20, 15, 10 years, most attacks were more technical in terms of sort of how they try to gain access. Now they realize that the easiest way is to address people. So I would say that the attack vectors have turned from trying to attack the systems to rather attack the people,
right?
Using the systems. For sure.
But in a way, they're going back to the basics, right? I mean, because the concept of con man, right? Well, it's not really correct to say man anymore, but nonetheless, the concept of con man basically was to convince people, gain their trust, and abuse their trust. And we're seeing a lot of that now recently as well, because with this whole attack vector and abusing the human aspect of it, you're basically abusing either the trust or the panic or phishing or exploiting the kind of weaknesses and emotions that humans have and basically exploiting them. Like, as you said, with the pandemic, the reason this is working so well and they're jumping on the bandwagon, as you said, is also because people are panicking and they obviously want to find out, oh, am I infected? How do I fix myself? Can I immediately make sure that nothing is going to happen to me, and so on? And then of course, these attackers are then trying to abuse and exploit that panic.
And that is sort of one angle, because it's not just the panic and the distress, because they can also try to do to lure you into being curious. For example, they will send you a video. Oh, look at what this person did. This is so crazy. And
right.
But there are many emotions that will make people do something, and fear is not the only one. Opportunity is another. You have won a prize. Click here to claim your prize, and people will do that as well. So
right, your Nigerian great grandfather left you a huge estate or something.
For example, yeah.
Right. So we have talked a bit about the attacker's perspective and the TTPs and what are they thinking and what are they exploiting. How is that affecting the business? How has that changed over the last decade?
Well, for the main part of the last decade, I've been in financial services, but obviously I'm sort of following the threats on a broader scale as well. But in financial services, we've seen that the cyber domain has risen from being out of the top 20 risks to actually being within the top 5 of the operational risk affecting the business. So it's definitely changing as well. There's a lot more focus. There are many financial services companies now that have closed down all physical offices, and all their businesses run digital. So obviously, we need to be more robust as well, and we need to have better visibility and detection capabilities as well. So
right,
the average annual spend on cybersecurity defense systems and the resources put into it has multiplied, definitely. But I still think there are many businesses that even today can ask themselves, are we doing enough? Because if you see the funding that the bad guys, so to speak, receive, increases a lot more than the good guys' budget.
Yeah, that is actually very true, because if you look at some of these advanced persistent threats, especially that are targeting the finance sector, because all the money is there, right? And coming from financial sector myself, one of the ones that we know very well is Lazarus Group, and they have kind of their like own HR, their own financial services department, because all the money that they gain from these attacks and from exploiting the finance sector, they're basically using them for becoming more sophisticated, having other different kind of attack vectors, and they're kind of like running a whole business in itself for doing this. And then that, from that perspective, you look like they have enough time, they're getting resources, whether it's monetary or other kind of resources that you need, and then we kind of need to match, because we don't have always the same amount of time. Our window is quite shorter in comparison. So what do you recommend? Because you say one of the things that businesses should do is ask, are we doing enough, right? How do you know if you're doing enough, and what do you recommend?
Well, it's difficult to know if you're doing enough, but I think that the important thing is to look to someone with the right competence, because traditionally, if you look at financial services companies, again, it's easy to talk in the sector, but traditionally you will see that most of the top level executives will be people with a financial or degree in finance, maybe in marketing. They will have long careers, maybe in things like internal audit, like financial audit, and those kind of things. But when it comes to technology and the cyber domain, security specifically, there are not so many on the top level. So in order for them to decide whether they are doing enough, it's very important that they get someone with the right level of competence to give them advice. This is a very complex area, and you need to be absolutely 100% up to date with the threat picture in order to know whether you're doing enough. So my recommendation would be ensure that someone with the right competence, or maybe even a consultancy or a group of people, take the holistic view of the business, the operation of the business to the current threat landscape, and the known threat actors, the known threat vectors, and then look at your defense mechanisms, and then make an informal decision based on your risk appetite. But again, ask for advice with someone from the industry with the right competence. That is, I cannot stress that enough. It's very important not to see this as a sci-fi sort of something that happens in the movies, because as we saw recently with Norsk Hydro, a couple of years ago with the Danish Maersk.
Maersk, correct.
It is not science fiction. It's very real, and
it's affecting the businesses. It's affecting the society. We are seeing that more often. The examples are very realistic. And as you say, it's correct. It's not just sci-fi and technology. Basically, it comes down to security leaders need to have a business acumen and understand and help businesses. What does it mean for them? How does it impact the business? So what I hear from you is that it's not enough for security leaders to just have technical competency, but they need to be able to see the holistic overview and how the cybersecurity field in itself is affecting the society and business.
I was more trying to make a point that the business leaders need to have the technical know-how. They need to understand cybersecurity is not something that IT can fix, because it's gonna require resources. It's gonna require detection capabilities, and it's gonna require incident management capabilities. And it's not something that you can like make the computer do something and you will be safe. You need to address like the people, the processes, your value chains, your vendors, partners, all those things, and to understand how much resources is actually required to get the risk down on an acceptable level. That might be difficult if you're not a professional in the industry. So, but obviously the security professionals need to understand the business strategy, the security that you put in place there to support the business.
Business, absolutely.
Once you start doing security for security's sake, then you're doing it wrong. You have to understand the business and to support the business strategy and the business goals. But yes, the top management, in order to make informal decisions, they need to make sure that they get the right competence to evaluate whether or not they are doing enough. And it can be difficult if you don't understand the reality of this threat. And we've seen, I still believe we see a lot of senior management that still don't grasp the magnitude and the realism of these threats, and that's why we see these spectacular hacks happening, because
And you make a very good, I mean, this is really true what you're saying. And I think what you just explained is also the other side of the same coin, because on one hand, the business leader need to understand the technology better, and the technical security people need to understand business better. That is the only way you can really start closing the gap, right? This is really going to help to build the synergies in place to be able to, because I am running this business to be secure, said no CEO ever, right? That's not the reason why they're running business in the first place.
And we need to be effective and to save us some money. Yep.
Exactly. So what is your prediction for the next years? How do you see the threat landscape and the attacks that are happening in the society and in the business area in general will evolve in the next coming years?
Well, I'm sorry to say this, and especially in the middle of this pandemic, but I believe that it will get worse before it gets better. And like I mentioned earlier, it comes down again to the digitalization of society, and we're putting more and more eggs in this basket. And now with the current situation and everyone working from home, there are even more eggs going into the basket. And the more dependent we make ourselves, the more impact attacks will have, and the more willing we will be to sort of depart with our money, for example. And that is an example of that is we see that the hackers are actually targeting the hospitals and the research facilities that are trying to make a vaccine. The reason that they do that is they know that the entire society is very dependent on both hospitals and the vaccine research at the moment. So, well, the chance that someone might actually pay them a ransom might be higher there, because people are so dependent on it. And
right.
So yeah, I'm sorry, but I believe that it will get a little bit worse still before it gets better.
It's important to have, it's not so much about being pessimistic, but realistic, right? It's good to have an understanding of how it can get worse. And if it does get worse, what does it mean for me? What does it mean for my business? And what does it mean for my employees and from a society perspective as well? And how does it affect? Because this example with the healthcare and the vaccines, this is not just anymore a sector. This is actually affecting the whole society. It is at a very systemic level. So yeah, it is. If we don't understand the extent to which it can go and in which direction it can go, then it's very difficult for us to be prepared and have the right posture in place to be able to defend and also recover in a way from such a scenario.
Yeah, and also we see that at the moment we're putting a lot of energy into design, into functionality. You can see the apps that we're creating to track the spreading of the virus, for example. So a lot is going into design and functionality, and not so much is going into privacy and security. And that is actually creating a gap. And we need to start bridge that gap. And until we start bridging that gap, things will become worse. So that is the scenario that I see, at least for the foreseeable future.
Wonderful. I think it's really, really good to know and understand these things and have a realistic understanding of where we're going forward to be able to position ourselves better and defend ourselves better. And as you say, bridge the gap to actually also think about privacy and security. It was so lovely, Bjorn, to have you on the podcast today. Always wonderful hearing your ideas and how you challenge the society, because this is really important to get better. So that was all for today's episode of We Talk Cyber with Monica. I'll be back with more episodes. Please stay tuned. Until then, take care of yourself. Thanks for tuning in to We Talk Cyber with Monica. Do not forget to subscribe to We Talk Cyber in your favorite podcast app and YouTube channel, Monica Talk Cyber. Take care and continue tuning in.